gentlemen. I'm in a difficult position. There's a famous, one of the most famous German philosophers of the early 20th century, also known, to come back to you, as a German comedian, Karl Valentin, or more properly Karl Valentin, who said, everything may have been said, but not by everyone. So I'm here to basically repeat what my colleagues have already said, and with which something I also must admit that hardly ever happens to me in academic conferences, that I wholeheartedly, completely, and unreservedly agree with everything that has been said. Thank you to the organizers of this conference for this unique experience that I've never had before, but apart from that, also to give me the honor and the pleasure to be here and present you with another motivational speech. To somebody who has been working in the area of comparative law and private international law for over 30 years, I must admit it's closer to almost 40 years, but over 30 years sounds a lot better than almost 40 years. To somebody who has been doing this for quite a while, it is really a thrilling experience to see this large number of young scholars who are devoted to the study of law, not necessarily comparative law, not necessarily private international law, unfortunately, but some people are out of luck. To see all these people united together in such a broad area within the law from a number of countries, so this is really a great pleasure, so I'm very happy to be here. But still, the schedule provides for another motivational speech, so I will try to do my best and add maybe some other aspects, but again, as I said, I completely agree with everything that has been said. So to take a little change of perspective, allow me to take you back in time, far back in time, to the turn from the 15th to the 16th century. At that time, more precisely between 1492 and 1504, the Italian navigator and explorer Christopher Columbus led 4 transatlantic maritime expeditions to the Caribbean and to Central and South America. These voyages led to the widespread knowledge of the so-called New World in Europe. They inaugurated a period known as the Age of Discovery, which saw the colonization of the Americas and transatlantic trade. The historical importance of these events is beyond doubt. In fact, they are generally considered to mark the beginning of what we tend to call the modern era. You are certainly all familiar with this milestone in global history. But why bring it to mind when we are just about to embark on a genuinely legal enterprise? After all, we are certainly no longer in an age of discovery of unknown lands on our planet. And even if we were, it would not be up to jurists like us to fill in gaps of knowledge in regard to geography. Actually, it's one of the more discouraging aspects of our discipline that it appears that all of the really interesting discoveries are made elsewhere. But still, I believe that the story of Columbus and the discovery of the Americas is in several ways exemplary for peculiarities of scientific discoveries in general and for our domain, the law in particular. What do I mean by that? Well, to begin with, Christopher Columbus did not set out to discover America. He was about to discover a sea route to India and China to establish alternative trade routes to Oriental goods like spices, silks, opiates, which were until then only accessible by arduous, difficult land routes that had been discovered by Marco Polo. At the time, many Europeans assumed that a single uninterrupted ocean surrounded Europe, Asia, and Africa. Consequently, Columbus and his brother developed a plan to travel westwards to the Indies across what was believed at the time to be the singular ocean, sea, the Atlantic Ocean. However, as we all know, the Americas came in the way. On his first voyage in 1492, Columbus landed on the island of San Salvador, which today forms part of the Bahamas. At the time, however, the Bahamas and the islands of the Caribbean were called the West Indies, which was only natural since everybody thought that they had, in fact, been traveling to the Indies. It was only after Columbus' death in 1507 that the New World was first named America in honor of Amerigo Vespucci, an Italian explorer and navigator from Florence, who realized that this New World constituted an entire new continent. Now, what does this story teach us for scientific research in general and for legal research in particular? Well, nowadays in Germany, there is quite a number of books describing how to write dissertations in the area of the law. Some of them have been quite successful commercially, and none of them have been written by me. In these manuals, you will often read that researchers like you should always begin by carefully working out a plan by which they will proceed to accomplish their task. And any one of you who has been applying for a scholarship will know of that experience. And the idea is that ideally they should strictly follow that plan through to the end, at which consequently they will arrive at their goal, a successful thesis. In fact, one of the authors even proudly claims that the table of contents of his dissertation ultimately was almost identical to the initial plan that he set up for his research. Now, dear ladies and gentlemen, please do not be overly impressed. In fact, I should like to disagree with this position. In contrast, I would like to borrow from a well-known phrase coined by the famous Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, which is, "The life of the law has not been logic, it has been experience." And I would like to modify that and say, the heart of discovery has not been planning and scheduling, it has been curiosity, originality, inspiration. Come to think of it, what good is a research project in law if already at the outset you can foresee every single step that will lead to the result, where you can correctly predict from the outset how all the distinctive facets, interests, policies will systematically fit together to yield the result you are pursuing? I should think that any research goal worth pursuing should not so easily lend itself to such simple predictions. Rather, it will involve considering, reconsidering, modifying, reconsidering, sometimes even horribly dicto, overturning, then reconsidering, combining, and have I already mentioned it, reconsidering the thesis that you have started from. And then in the end, we will know, hopefully, how all the pieces fit together in order to constitute what we've been striving for, a sound and convincing academic scientific thesis. So Columbus didn't find a passage to India. Who cares? He discovered the New World, he discovered America, and it appears that by doing so he has earned himself no small amount of fame for posterity, probably more than by discovering India that had already been discovered. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating that you plunge into your academic work without proper planning and pre-consideration. All serious research requires appropriate planning. In that respect, the manuals certainly hold true. However, what I do want to do is encourage you to not stubbornly follow the path that you originally chose, but to be open to new perspectives, new considerations, new developments, and to constantly keep reconsidering, rethinking your premises and decisions that you make along the way. Do not worry if things may turn out differently than you originally thought, or if on closer or possibly even yet closer inspection, a cherished, initially appealing idea turns out not to be that reliable after all. To borrow another saying, many roads lead to Rome, but some roads lead somewhere else. And sometimes it turns out that you originally may have thought you were headed for Rome, but it turns out that your true destination was somewhere else. Well, go ahead, change your plan. Be mindful of others, like the guy who has set off to India and turned up in Bermuda. But then what about India? What about all the spices, silks, and opiates so desperately sought in Europe? Well, Columbus was followed by others. By 1499, Vasco da Gama was the first to establish a sea link between Europe and Asia by way of the Cape of Good Hope. And only 2 decades later, Ferdinand Magellan and Juan Elarco, who sometimes gets forgotten along the way, but Magellan didn't finish his journey, the two of them established a trade route with the Spice Islands in what today is Indonesia. And along the way, they completed the first circumnavigation of the world. This is also an important lesson to be learned. Whatever the unavoidable limitations of your own research may be, it may and often will constitute a stepping stone or component of the research that others will conduct. It is no misnomer if in the world of academic research we talk of contributions, because this is all we can do, make contributions to the progress of our discipline in general. And in that respect, we profit from the advances and failures of our predecessors, but we also, hopefully, enable or facilitate further progress by successes. So let me finish by saying there is a world to discover out there. And if you, well, I'm in a better position to do this at this moment, but if you look around, look at the people around you. These are the people who are also involved in the same enterprise as you. You're in a community of smart, not so smart, but in the majority, very smart people who do the same crazy things as you do. And look at them, look at your professors if they're here. If not, look at some other professor, or if you're desperate, look at me. They are all faced with the same problems, the same difficult tasks to follow. And whenever you have the feeling that you are on the wrong path, that the pieces do not fit together, that somehow you are incapable of fitting them together, of making sense of what you're doing, don't worry, because this is what you are here to do. You're facing the same challenges that all of us, all of your, or let's say at me, faced at your time and sadly are still facing today, because this is what we are doing. This is what we're confronting, research. So if you worry that you are not up to the task, good for you, because this is how we have to feel. We are all not up to the task. Well, I am not up to the task. Some of my colleagues probably are. But we all have our difficulties. And it is in the end that we see sometimes some kind of system, some kind of discovery. And this is where we're striving to go. And even if we have the feeling that it is not the best that could be done, well, there will be others who may improve on your work, or possibly others who will recognize that your work was not as bad as you may think at your time. So in that sense, I'm very happy to see so many people doing the same crazy things that we like to do, and I encourage you to further go on this way. We are all just minor wheels, links in a chain in the development of academic research, and we depend on you, and go on doing the good work, and I wish you good luck.